Hi, I'm Bill Quigg. I'm with Richmond Baking. This is my second BEMA convention. My first one was in Vail a few years ago. And the one thing I love about the baking industry is the lifelong friendships that I've been able to gain.
Hi, my name is Margaret Marsh and I'm from Flowers Foods. This is my second time attending BEMA. One thing I love about the baking industry is how it is both challenging and exciting.
Hi, my name is OJ DeSouza. I'm with the Signature Baking Company, and this is my first time to BEMA. Just joined a couple months ago. So what I love about the baking industry, I'm blown away by the hospitality. Y'all have been so welcoming, friendly, and fun. I'm kicking myself for not joining years ago.
Hi, my name is Alexander Salameh, and I'm with Bakery de France, and this is my second BEMA convention. One thing I love about this industry is how many truly passionate people you come across every day. From our equipment vendors to our ingredient suppliers, competitors, and finally our customers, we can bond over our shared passion and love for this industry. And seeing the consumers really enjoy the products that we make makes it all the more rewarding.
How this works, if you haven't seen this, is it's really pretty easy. It's Ask a Baker. We find just great value in just this exchange, getting to talk. So we have 4 folks here that have a lot of different responsibilities in their organizations. And so we want that variety. And sometimes someone will answer and maybe the other ones won't, or all 4 of them will answer. It's very free form, and we just want you to engage and talk and ask questions. So I get to start, and I want all of you guys to hit this one. So I want you to think back 6 months, one win that you like, man, this is something we did and it was a big win, and look 6 months in the future and say, this is really our most challenging thing that's hitting our organization going forward. So anyone start? Alexander, start. I'll make it.
One win that we had after the last few difficult years is we're 100% staffed again, which is a great feeling. So that was a big accomplishment for our team. We were spending a lot of time on staffing, and hopefully in the next 6 months we keep working on training and making everybody really contributing members of the team. So
6 months ago for us, we installed the first big piece of automation that we've been using, and so that really changed our business model. We were able to create a lot more product. Before that, I was having a little anxiety about not being able to fill all the orders that we were having. So we're just breaking into and growing in our automation. So that was the first big piece that came in, and it was really exciting. And then the next 6 months, we have several more pieces of automation coming on board. So I'm really excited to get that turned on as well. It's a pretty exciting time for us right now.
I think my answer is probably a combination of your two, because about 6 months ago we started a program where we did variable shift schedules for our folks. We call them family members at the bakery. And so what we realized was, because of our 12-hour work days, we do 12 by 4 and then a 3-day weekend shift. It was impossible to ever hire a single mom. And so we just didn't have that whole group that could work for us. Our single parents just couldn't do it. And so we did like what we call a school shift. And so we started they start at 9 in the morning and then end at 4 or 5 days a week. And so it's just, I think what we realized through the pandemic was to say, we really need to be more flexible as a company, as opposed to, this is the way we're going to do things, you must accept it as somebody who works for us. And so that helped us with that staffing level. Looking forward 6 months, we're in a similar position, OJ, so I look forward to talking to you about it, but we're doing a very significant automation project as well. And so it's going to be a game changer for us, hopefully, but that should be really exciting.
And I'd say about 6 months ago, we found out that we made our greenhouse gas emissions goal ahead of schedule, and part of that was because we had projects like Henderson that a lot of you all helped in the room helped with, is be to save a lot of energy through creative solutions. And then in 6 months from now, we are excited about having our first solar project completed. And that's it.
Great job. Okay, floor is open.
Morning, thank you very much for answering our questions. I guess my question is, where do you see the growth in your specific markets? Which products do you see as being leaders in the next few years?
So we're in the contract manufacturing business, so a lot of the products we make are cookies and crackers for larger companies. And I think similar to the point I was making earlier with the automation piece, I think that automation in our situation has also come with flexibility that we don't have. And so to be able to combine those two together and have different offerings to our customers that we haven't had before, I think that is going to be really beneficial for us. I also see, for those of us in the room that are contract manufacturers, I feel like that's a pretty good market to be in. From the standpoint of larger companies continually looking to outsource smaller projects, medium-sized projects that they don't want to do themselves. Always the push for line capacity utilization. So that's what's probably going to affect our business the most.
We see a continued push toward par-baked long fermentation as a lot of our customers are continuing to have labor challenges and training challenges. Especially in store bakery, there is a continued shift toward working with our products that might be a little bit easier to train to bake off. So we're seeing that continue as a trend.
For us, we're growing with hamburger buns is kind of what we're focusing on a little bit more, but also with a level of variety, a little bit more variety than you would see, at the grocery store. So doing like jalapeno cheese or poppy that you don't normally see at the grocery store has been pretty big for us. So trying to find that level of customization, but mass producing and focusing on hamburger buns is for us.
And I can't really speak to the market piece, but I'll say that as far as customers go and investors, we're getting a lot more questions and interest about what our products mean environmentally. What are we doing in our bakeries to be more sustainable? So it's not, we're not just selling a loaf of bread anymore. It's more, what are the other impacts of that? So I have seen a huge uptick in that as well.
I want to follow up a little bit with that, Margaret Ann. Where is that going? Where are we in the next, for all of you? Where are we in the next 5 to 10 years on that pace? I kind of got a feel that it was a big topic, and then COVID was really more about just hanging on and producing and keeping shelves filled and, keeping your factories going. But I feel like now that focus has really returned back to that sustainability and footprint and all that. And that's something it seems like it's going to be, it's going this way. So where are we going in the next 5 to 10 years? It'd be interesting for anybody that wants to answer that.
Well, I'll say that some of that is due to the SEC regulations around disclosure. So there's a lot more interest in disclosing these numbers. So there is a lot more focus on it in that respect. But I will say that some of there's also a savings component, a cost savings component to it as well. So, I think it's a great thing that we're doing, but there's often, if you're saving energy, if you're saving water, we want to buy the equipment that saves the most water and resources, not only because it's good for the earth, but also because it helps reduce our operating cost.
Yeah. And for us, our customers continue to ask about it, and we're certainly moving in that direction, but with more limited resources, we really rely on our suppliers to continue helping us to create equipment that is uses less energy, and that's more sustainable to operate. And we're certainly seeing a trend there. And as technology improves, we're finding that there are more options out there, to reduce our footprint. But internally, constantly reviewing our cleaning practices, and seeing what we're using in terms of utilities outside of manufacturing. So always on top of mind.
Hi, Baker Friends. So really quick, what do you think in your area is your largest opportunity, or another way said, what keeps you up at night?
Want me to go?
I didn't hear the question, sorry.
Neither did I.
What's your biggest opportunity? Or things
What
that
keeps
keep-
us up at night?
Okay, well, she wants to know what keeps you up at night. That's where she was headed with it. What's keeping you up at night?
Goodness.
Lines going down. Lead time, not knowing how to get it back up. That's as we are getting more in automation, there are totally different problems that I don't know how to fix. Like, I know how we've done it in the past, but now that we're getting into this new field, knowing who to call, what equipment to have on hand, so that way we can get the line back up and running, and what pieces that we need to have a backup piece for, so that way when that line does go down, that we're not caught holding a lot of trouble. So that's what keeps me up at night right now.
I think for us, it's food safety. Probably keeps me up at night, just because it seems like there's just so many unknowns. Even when we just built a new bakery in 17, and it was really intended to be very food safe, but you've still got a lot of hard plastics. You've still got ingredient bags that could get into products, those kind of things. And so really trying to look at solutions to solve that has been a challenge for us. And we make a lot of products for school kids and babies and toddlers and stuff. And so, that can be really challenged. So that's probably something that keeps me up.
A question here for OJ and Bill. Earlier you mentioned you're both involved in some automation projects. Can you expand a little bit about where in the process you're automating and what some of your expectations are for, or some results you expect to get from the automation?
Right now, so we just bought a depanner, spiral cooler, and automatic bagger. I'm trying to streamline the packaging process. Right now, the buns are sitting on racks, cooling, waiting for it to go into a hand loader, and that's affecting the quality of the product. So I'm really hoping that the depanning and that whole line will fix that issue and allow us to continue to grow and really use the speed of the automatic panning and divider rounder that we installed in January. So we can't really use that volume yet because that bottleneck on packaging is holding us back.
Yeah, similarly, we're bottlenecked in packaging presently. We do a lot of 2 and 3 count restaurant packs, cookies and crackers. And so presently we manually pick up the product and put it in the chutes to the wrappers. And so this is a pick and place robot system to do that. And so the results we're expecting are really increased yield because the people have a hard time keeping up, and it's really hard to speed the line up because of training. Typically, it's a position that takes a lot of repetition and a lot of experience to get really good at, and so you've got so many different people doing those positions that you end up having some better than others, and then the line's imbalanced, and so you try to go to the lowest common denominator kind of situation, and so the pick and place should solve that. And the other thing for us too is it's scalable to the extent that since our packaging is our bottleneck, as we scale additional pieces to the robotic system, then we can increase capacity on the line directly. So that's the other benefit that we're looking for.
So during the pandemic, we noticed a lot of changes in the baking industry, certainly on the on your side of the table, and a lot of those changes were happening to survive. So a lot of the food service folks were, changing their business model to survive. So now that we're far enough away from it, did some of those changes stick to the organization, or did you go back to and revert back to some of the things you were doing pre-pandemic?
We're all in food service for most of our customers are restaurants, hotels, convention centers, and they all, canceled their checks and canceled their orders, in March. And so that was a really scary time for us. We pivoted and started a home delivery service because the grocery stores were having trouble keeping their shelves filled. So it was an opportunity for us to get our products to the end consumer. But when the restaurants came back pretty quickly, I think it was 21 February, for us at least, we shut down home delivery. It was a lot of small orders going to places and the logistics of that. But on the wholesale side, we kept the efficiencies of delivery routes. We consolidated. We changed what time that people had to have orders in, and different delivery days for different areas in Dallas, and just try to keep whatever we could that was really working intact. So yeah.
Yeah, for us, it really, on the customer side, we're surprised how things came back relatively quickly, and habits largely went back to what they were pre-pandemic. But on our side, we still had some fresh business that we were doing. We were about 95% frozen, and the rest was fresh. And the pandemic was a good opportunity for us to funnel all of that into par-baked. So, we did not get back into the fresh baking, and we're now 100% frozen. So that was probably the biggest change for us, and we don't have any strong opposition to that from our customers. So everybody, for the most part, switched to a par-baked product, and it's been pretty good for us operationally.
For us, our biggest changes were probably on the employment side. I mentioned the shift schedules earlier, but that was really only a small piece of it. I mean, quite frankly, I think like most of us, we were kind of desperate for people at some point, and so it caused us to really ask, why not? Why are we stuck with these old ways of treating people or of policies and procedures with folks? And so it really opened our minds up to do different things. Like, just as an example, we started a program for hiring people in rehabilitation and people coming out of prison. And, in the end, I thought, well, why not? What's really holding us back from doing that? And admittedly, it was happening, initially because we desperately needed people. But in the end, it's really changed our whole mindset towards a lot of that, a lot of those open-minded ideas with employment. And I think they're really going to stick. And hopefully, in the end, we'll have people that are that much more loyal and that much more dedicated to our company.
Forgive my attire. I was watching the Dolphins do their thing today and had to rush over here to see my man OJ.
Where's your hat?
Where my hat? It's my wife's guarding it, so it's safe. It's safe. But my question to you guys is, what is a bottleneck that y'all have in your bakery right now that you want to or are trying to solve before the end of this year?
For me, again, it's the packaging is the biggest thing, and then also another bottleneck that we have is the ovens. So we're using rack ovens right now. We just bought another 2, and then I was like, okay, we need to probably buy another 2 here in a second. And so now we're thinking maybe a tunnel oven is probably the next step. So and then we'll have both side by side. But in terms of the layout, I don't know where I'm going to put that tunnel oven right now and how that's going to work. So need a little help with that.
For us, not really any physical bottlenecks, but I think getting our technical team trained is a big priority for us, reducing downtime, and that can definitely create bottlenecks when we have a line down, and it's things that can be resolved fairly quickly with the right knowledge. So that's a big priority for us, is to get as much technical knowledge as we can to reduce downtime.
Yeah, and I think for us it's finding and keeping that talent in the bakery. So, especially in the EHS role, it's really hard to find. And so building up those folks, getting them, trained in what they need and encouraging them has been a bottleneck, I guess, for us.
Yeah, thinking the term bottleneck a little bit differently, but just the predictability of schedule and predictability of customer demand has been really tough for us. And it seems like, they were desperate for anything, and then they filled their warehouses, and now they, are taking a bit of a pause, at least for us, and Q2 has been a little bit slow. And so trying to convince our people that Q3 is just around the corner and we'll be able to, get back to higher volumes again and level out the employment situation. It's just been a real, I feel like we're about 3 months behind in every decision we make, with that kind of stuff, so.
Okay, I've got a question over here. Switching to think about sales, who or what type of customer are the most demanding, and what are they demanding right now, and how can we as equipment providers help you meet those demands?
I love all my customers. None of them are demanding. Are any of them in the room?
We love demanding customers. They're usually challenging us to be better, to make better products, to be more consistent. Again, helping us, and I'll say it again, helping us with training, with running our equipment, with running it properly and keeping it in good running condition helps us with consistency. That's a huge thing our customers are looking for, is just to have a consistent product. So, we really rely on that and all of your knowledge to help us. So that's critical for us.
I would echo exactly what you said there. The demanding ones keep us in line to make sure that we're getting better at what we're doing. But there's some that are just a little too demanding, and so we just raise our prices so that they stop ordering.
Yeah, I think for us, it sort of circles back to the food safety point, just in equipment design and, as simple as, what kind of covers are we going to put on dials? Is it going to be a hard plastic cover or not? How do we fix those things? Because there's just dozens of them throughout the whole line. So how do you determine the best way to do that? What's the most cleanable? I mean, I do believe from an equipment standpoint, there are good cleanable solutions that don't cost much more money, just in the design of it. So, that will be ever increasing for us. And our customers will always demand more and more safe food, higher standards. That's a one-way street. It's not going to turn around. So any way we can partner with our vendors to do a better job with that, I think is money well spent.
Yeah, same with sustainability. The more they are really demanding, or some customers are demanding around, they want to know what we're doing in energy and water, and if there's ways that we purchase equipment from you all, can we show those savings, and can we share that story with the customer? It helps a lot.
OJ, I promised this would be an easy one, right? No problem. With the talk of people, right, onboarding and retention rates being really challenged right now, I had a question as far as safety, human safety. Have you seen more issues at the bakeries as you're onboarding, less experience? Has that been a concern for you?
I think for us, for sure. It is amazing. We've often tried to think about the cost of turnover, and I have this conversation with my CFO frequently. And I said, whatever you think it is, triple it, and we're probably halfway there. I mean, truly, because when you think about something like safety, I mean, one accident's $10,000 or $100,000, and it can be just as simple as a slip or a trip or something like that, just because they're not used to it. So we're working really hard to try to just design that out of the system as much as we can, but it's really tough. I mean, as part of our business, as I'm sure the other ones are, I mean, we need flexibility, and so we'll be moving pieces of equipment around, and metal detector goes over here one day and it's over here the next or whatever, and then you've got passenger traffic or people traffic and all that kind of stuff. And so it's a big deal for sure for us.
Yeah, I think we've definitely, we've invested a lot more in our onboarding and our training because of the turnover. We have some new programs like Alchemy that's more interactive training program, which helps. But yeah, it takes that continued focus on it. There's something else I was going to mention. Go ahead and I'll think about it.
I was just going to say that we've had to become much more vocal about things, as we're transitioning to some staff that's a little bit less skilled, that doesn't have that manufacturing experience. We've found that from top to bottom, we have to be talking about safety much more than we used to. And so it's the first thing that we talk about when we hire somebody, and it's top of mind, especially for the first few months. So definitely a huge push for safety. It was always one of the core things that we trained on before, but now much more so.
I would agree with the unskilled labor coming in, that having to talk about it, but also, I mean, even having the signs and the guards on, people find ways to still hurt themselves. And so we're putting up little barriers around different areas where, hey, you don't need to be in this area at all. So just to try to make it as easy as possible to keep them safe.
And one thing I've seen that helps too is centerline programs, which has been a big push. Paul Rainey's in the audience, but pushing that at the bakeries, if the equipment is set up appropriately, you don't have as many issues. It doesn't lead to injuries because if something goes wrong. That is also a big benefit too. So.
Hi guys, thanks so much for being so brave to take the stage and kind of sit in front of a firing squad of BEMA members asking you all of these questions. So I'm hearing everything that you're saying, and a lot of them are separate concepts that I have seen sort of morph into one overarching thing that's emerged in the past year or two, and that's ESG. Environmental, I'm looking at you, Margaret, answer, tell me if I get it right, environmental, social, and governance. And that's really from the business perspective and how companies are allocating their investments toward these specific things. So how are you all, is the term ESG sort of coming into your lexicon and your business plans? And how are you, if it is, how are you prioritizing these things in your financial investments, especially when inflation is where it is and everyone's pulling their purse strings?
I'll go first. In terms of the financial investments, I think when we look to buy a piece of equipment, we look at the overall system. We find which equipment is going to have the most sustainable impact. But it's not, ESG is not just sustainability. It's also has the social piece to it, which is really important. The training that I mentioned, that is all safety, that's all part of that. At Flowers, we have a steering committee of different subject matter experts that come together and can discuss, and it helps bring all of that together, because it is a lot of back and forth and partnership between the different areas and not just one or the other.
We're not there yet, so that's still something that we'll need to flush out as we continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's something that we're just starting on now. We always keep it in mind whenever making investments. It's not yet one of the primary drivers or focuses, but we're certainly looking to bring that in more and more.
I think we're likewise taking baby steps. I think probably the way I would answer your question really relates to how do we interact with our family members? How do we, on the social aspects of it, we are a very values-driven organization, and so I meet with all new family members and go through our values and really talk about what it is to have integrity and what it is to be grateful. And one of our values is La Familia, so talking about how can we truly be a family and love one another and still have that business aspect. And so to us, it's really about a lot of the social aspects driving us. I think we will be driven more towards the environmental impacts, basically from our customers, as was said earlier. We're having more and more restrictions and more asks of us in that regard. But we're new to it, quite frankly. I mean, we do as much as we can, but it's still, we're taking baby steps.
Hi. I want to keep the sustainability conversation going. I know, Margaret Ann, you and I have talked about how the ways Flowers has pushed equipment suppliers to become more energy and water efficient in the equipment they're developing. And this isn't just a question for you, anyone can answer, but I wondered if you could share with the group what are some of the ways you're pushing them to get more innovative in their equipment design, to make it more energy, water efficient. But I'm also curious about the ingredient side. I don't want to leave them out either. Is the ingredient side also a place where you're looking to become more sustainable?
I'll speak to the ingredient side. We're wanting to know more about where those ingredients come from. You know, how are they produced? Are they sourced in water-stressed regions? You know, a lot of that it's important to us because if there is, you know, a drought or there's some sort of issue that impacts the crop yield, it impacts our business as well and our costs. So I think that's really important. And then water is a big challenge. You know, there's a lot of times you don't see as much of a savings from water cost-wise, so it can be a little bit harder. But there's also minimal ways to really reuse water in the baking industry because it's a food facility. But being able to find ways to reuse water is kind of our next thing that we've got to figure out how we can save that and through some of our equipment upgrades.
We definitely work with our ingredient suppliers as well on packaging. Finding innovative ways to package the ingredients is very important. So we just recently switched one of our major ingredients that was coming in buckets into corrugated packaging. So that was something that the ingredient suppliers couldn't do before, or our supplier rather, and you know, that's going to be huge savings in these plastic buckets that you know, unfortunately, we're very hard to dispose of. So, you know, that's a really big win. But a lot more of that wherever we can.
I was having an interesting conversation with Jimmy the other day, and we were talking about buying ovens and looking at equipment. And, you know, heck, some of our ovens are newer, but some, you know, are quite old, decades old. And just as a baker, trying to think about what are those environmental regulations going to be 20, 30 years from now is so difficult. You know, talking about electrification of ovens and some of those things. I mean, I just bought ovens for a bakery in 17, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now everybody's going to switch to electric, and you know, I'm going to be out of luck having to replace all that equipment. So I think that's the real challenge: is how can we partner with our vendors to say what's that future look like, and how can we work together to buy the right equipment, because we need it for long term. I mean, we're not buying stuff for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, good afternoon, thanks for the feedback. Questions on the training. So what's the best way for us to train your guys? Is it in person? Is it virtual? Is it online? And then a 2-second part of that question is, since scheduled down days are so important, that's not the ideal day to do the training. When is? And then the other thing is, a lot of times at the plant level, they say they want the training, but they're too busy to do it.
A lot of great points there. I think a lot of that is very true. Getting everyone on the same page is a little bit challenging. But, you know, effective training, I think, really comes in many ways. One of the biggest things that we did recently was we worked with a lot of our equipment vendors to facilitate communication between our technicians and their technicians. So we've created chat groups with them that you know, that we work on contract with, and that's been really, really great, because a lot of the training happens when they need to fix something, and that's really when our technicians are the most engaged, is when they need to fix something. So that has been a great way for our technicians to learn, is to have open communication and access to your technicians. So, you know, that's really moved the needle a lot. And aside from that, you know, we've had some good success with training manuals
with visual learning systems. So, I think that there are a lot of different ways to do it. And you're right about down days, not a great day for training, but really hands-on during, I would say, scheduled repairs is probably the best time to make sure that we're focusing on training.
Yeah, I think we want all the things, everything you listed, please. From the standpoint of, I think there are different circumstances that work at different times, right? So I know, just thinking of our vertical bagging systems, we've partnered with our vendor there, and they come on site and do on-site training. But the problem from my perspective is that's great for a service tech to come in the bakery and teach our mechanics how to fix the equipment, but who's really teaching our operators to optimize the operation of the equipment? And that's a different person from your company, right? So I think it's really got to be all different things in a different blend for different circumstances. And we've got one vendor that has an on-site training facility that they operate, and so we can send people to them. I think that's good in certain circumstances, but not all, likewise. So to me, it's got to be all kinds of different ways to do it.
Yeah, I think videos and cheat sheets, those two things. Don't give me a big 100-page manual that I've got to go dig through and find, what the settings are, to have a quick cheat sheet that the maintenance can look at, and here's what I do. And then the videos that they showed yesterday with the digital glasses, those were great. So those two are, I think, really important.
I agree. In person for me was number one, just so that way I can engage. But again, seeing the glasses yesterday, I'm going to buy them as soon as you guys tell us how to do that. Because then you don't have to wait for somebody to fly down and get down there. Everything you guys were talking about yesterday was spot on. But it would be nice when, for at least for me, when we're putting in a new line or a new machine, having y'all come out, show it in person, but then maybe check in 6 months later or 3 months later and say, hey, how's everything going? And maybe circling back, because sometimes there are more questions that come up as you've started running the machine. So I think that would be helpful.
So switching gears a little bit, recruiting and retention is a problem for everybody in here. If you focus specifically on employee retention, what is maybe a unique thing that you guys do in your company or that you've seen elsewhere that is effective in both new employees and the longer tenured employees? Because that's often quite different to try to retain the new and the longer tenured.
Probably the biggest change we made during COVID actually was we used to have a point attendance system, and you got, quarter point for being late, you got a half point for missing a half day, you got a full point for missing a full day, all that kind of mess. And people hated it. They just absolutely thought it was the worst, because you've got really good people who have life happen, and they take a lot of pride in having 0 points, and all of a sudden they've got a point. It just really is demoralizing, quite frankly. And so what we came up with was the ability, and we looked at each segment of the business, so packaging area, mixing area, whatever. We said, well, we can have one person gone from mixing and still be fine, right? So we said, well, as long as you give us 24 hours notice, you can have unpaid days off, as many as you want, quite frankly. Now, at some point, you get to the point where they just don't, if they're not coming to work, we're not going to keep them. But the point is, it allowed them and us to plan their lives. So if they had a kid who had a big football game Friday night, we all knew they weren't coming to work. I mean, we're kidding ourselves to think they were. So we just allowed us to work as adults, figure it out, and that's been a huge game changer for us from a retention standpoint, and also from a morale standpoint of all the people that work for us.
I say apprenticeship programs are really important. Our engineering department's done a fantastic job of getting new talent in from when they're in school. They'll do a work study where they come in, they get experience, they get their foot in the door. They see, oh, this could be a career for me, and they come in and they're loyal. We support them with their education. They continue on for many years, and a lot of our leaders now came out of those programs. So I think that I'd like to see, I think more of that would be helpful.
For us, really was engaging more with our team members and encouraging their supervisors to engage with them and to see what motivates them. We saw a big motivational shift during the pandemic and after the pandemic. And really just understanding what makes each person, what motivates them, what interests them, and starting to give them responsibilities that are perhaps outside of their core function, but something that is actually interesting to them. So, we, for example, found out that one of our guys had a hobby at home where, he wasn't on our technical team, but he was really into programming and, into working with sensors, and so we gave him a little side project to work on, and that was, a huge boost for him. So really focusing on the individual and having our supervisors engage with them more as people and seeing kind of what they're into, what they're interested in. Turns out that, a lot of people have a lot of skills that we can use. We just have to find out what those are and motivate them. So.
And for us, it's been empowering the people to do their job and giving them the breadth to not have to micromanage them, let them figure it out, and talking with them to make them part of that process. And if they have an idea, let's try it. Yeah, let's see how it goes, and making them feel part of the team and that they're responsible for it. So, but we still struggle with it, of course, too. So.
Great. We're probably got time for maybe one more or so. So don't be shy. Anyone? Okay.
Can I ask one?
Oh.
Of my
Yes.
fellow panelists.
You're going to ask one?
I'm gonna put on my ABA hat here for a second. How big of a deal is Sesame in this whole situation? Because it seems like from the ABA governmental issues, it's really been tough. So I'd just love to hear a baker's perspective on that.
On our side, we actually discontinued all sesame items and took sesame out of all of our facilities. Food safety is critical, and using sesame as a topping is just a huge undertaking to make sure that it's fully eradicated after production. So we took the decision for several months to move our customers onto different items, and everything was discontinued. Luckily we don't do any sesame burger buns, which are really hard to do without. But our specialty breads that use sesame, it was a big enough deal that we just stopped using sesame entirely.
So we have a separate line for the sesame from like our brioche and stuff like that for packaging. We run it on a different slicer, and we keep it separate from other ingredients. But we're still trying to figure out how best to do it moving forward.
So like, for example, with equipment vendors and stuff, is that an opportunity? I don't know. I'm just kind of asking generally, is that something where if different pieces of equipment were easier to eradicate the sesames from or something? I don't know. Is that an opportunity for an equipment company?
I think so.
Okay.
That was a good question, Bill. Way to wrap it up. Way to wrap it up. Okay, so thank you. Let's give them a round of applause.